So buying a new boat is pretty scary, especially since you might not know exactly what's going on. But probably one of the more important parts is the engine, and sometimes we just keep our fingers crossed and buy the boat and don't even really look at that kind of stuff. But I'm just going to give you a few helpful tips and tricks so you can just check it out. If you're not bringing it to like any type of like mechanic or something, you can just look at this, and it's a lot better than nothing. So let's check it out. I would definitely look at all of your gauges, and you can see that your oil, temperature, fuel, voltage, and the RPM gauge are all the same color. The black surrounding looks pretty similar. The inside glass looks like it's faded about the same. And this is pretty important because your hour meter is actually on the RPM gauge. And if this is different, then your hour meter is not going to be the same. And sometimes the RPM gauge fails, or the hour meter goes out, or something weird. They just replaced the RPM right here. If they replace this entire unit, then the hour meter is going to get reset, and you're not going to know the actual hours on the engine. So definitely check that out. When we come over to the engine part of it, I would check out all of the screws right here and make sure that, you know, it hasn't been like totally torn apart. You can see everything's painted. For example, this screw is all marked up. However, this is okay because you need to take off the belts and adjust them. That's just to move it around and adjust the belts. I had to adjust the belt over here to take the impeller off, which is completely fine. But you can see everything else is completely standard. You know, maybe this one could be okay because there is a temperature gauge in there that might fail. But you want to check out the main engine components and just want to see if all of that is still stock with OEM. If all the paint off the heads of the screws are off, then I may be a little bit more worried or something like that. Now another thing I would do is check the engine block and see, and just go all the way down there, get your eye underneath there, check it out, make sure there's no water line on it. If the boat like somehow was in the water for a long period of time and just sat in the water, definitely not a good thing to do. I would definitely check that out. If you do see that, look in the engine oil and see if there's any water in the oil. Check out the connections between the transmission and engine. Make sure that's all good to go. Everything looks really clean. There's no rust, there's no water or moisture sitting up here. You can check both oil levels, make sure that's all good. Make sure the oil's not too dark and gross. Maybe they didn't change it, or they just left it out. There might be some water in it. Check all that out. I would take a look at the engine and the transmission fluid. Transmission fluid is still very nice and pink. It's not black or gross. So this transmission definitely has been changed out very often, every season, and I know that because I do it. Take a look at the water filter. If that thing's jam-packed, there's not a lot of water that can cycle through the engine. Might be a little weary of that. So if you're not using a mechanic and you check all that stuff out, the last thing I would do is start up the engine, put in the key ignition, turn it over. You can hear the fuel pump turn on. Starts right up. Make sure there's no like jumping, or if the engine's rough, let it idle. I would really try to have the engine do a cold start. Cold starts typically aren't the best for engines, so if you can take advantage of that, I definitely would. And then put it in and out of gear. First gear is super smooth, reverse is super smooth, and then if you're super lucky, take her out for a spin, do some donuts, make sure it's all good to go. And if all that checks out, you're probably 95% there. Most of the issues will be shown if you check all that out, but there's probably a 5% chance that maybe there might be something small that you couldn't check out, but that a mechanic could have checked out. If you did all that, thumbs up. I think you're gonna do pretty good, and you're gonna be pretty lucky, and good luck with your new boat.